After the demise of the Republic's Commission for the Protection of the Republic in 19 BBY, a new order for the galaxy was initiated inside the halls of Coruscant's Imperial city by the self-proclaimed Emperor Palpatine, which became known as COMPNOR, or the Commission for the Protection of the New Order. The new order would underpin Palpatine's ideology for his newly formed Galactic Empire, and many of his closest aides during the Republic rallied around him to ensure his ideology was implemented. As the second video on the Empire's bureaucratic agencies, the inner workings of COMPNOR is the episode's focus, except for the Imperial Security Bureau, which I shall produce a separate focus video due to its complexity inside COMPNOR's structure of agency branches. But let's focus on how COMPNOR was formed, who was involved, and begin to look at the branch agencies. An example of one of Palpatine's aides was the former COMPNOR advisor Crew Avandran, who became the financial driving force for COMPNOR, cultivating and encouraging the organisation to build alongside another prominent advocate, Eisen Ilraz. The Emperor cunningly and subtly ensured any opposition was swept aside without ever realising Palpatine had forced COMPNOR's agenda, by covertly providing orders to those who carried out his wishes. To act as the Emperor's leadership of the organisation, a select committee was formed as the executive body and was led by the fanatical supporter of its ideology, Eisen Ilraz. Ilraz was key in developing ideas and concepts centred around human centricism, which was the tendency to view the galaxy from the perspective of a human majority and despise alien races. As changes began to take hold over the galaxy upon the subtle approval of the watchful Emperor, COMPNOR grew swiftly into a formidable power. In its attempts to build the ethic of the New Order into the lives of as many galactic citizens as possible, COMPNOR initiated a recruitment policy which painted the Republic as a relic of the past and brought massive volumes of young followers into its ranks to cement its future. At the height of its power, the New Order boasted around 25,000 members. Cleverly, the organisation ensured large numbers of its loyal, committed and enthusiastic members were placed strategically into the huge Imperial bureaucratic machine across the galaxy. This acted as the secretive spy network, allowing COMPNOR to receive intelligence information provided by their members no matter where they were stationed. Even the regional moffs and planetary governors needed to be mindful that many of their Imperial citizens were members of the organisation, and so any straying from Imperial policy was easily observed, making it virtually impossible to resist the Emperor's will. Over the years following 19 BBY, COMPNOR's influence became so powerful as a political tool, they assumed total control over Imperial policy and completely dedicated to the direction given by the Emperor. During the Galactic Civil War after Palpatine had dissolved the Imperial Senate, COMPNOR were well placed to fill the bureaucratic position left behind, and in reality it was not difficult due to the largely symbolic nature of its existence. After the rise of the Empire, the Senate was simply kept in place to provide Palpatine with the illusion to the Imperial populace and to the galaxy that a form of democracy still existed, and allowing the Empire's grip to grow stronger until the time was right to dissolve the Senate. The structure of sub-agencies to COMPNOR was extensive, with each section playing their part to allow power to grow for the Empire. Created to sustain the long-term future of the Galactic Empire, the largest branch of the New Order was the Subadult Group, also known as the SA Group. It comprised of over 1 trillion youth members who were devoted to the New Order, believing it was the best in the galaxy. To keep these young Imperials from understanding the lesser legitimate aspects of the Empire, they were led by Imperial officers who instilled propaganda into their minds to ensure their total indoctrination. Although considered inefficient, their SA Group headquarters controlled all communications to their serving divisions. However, their operations frequently mishandled messages, which hampered the SA Group headquarters' reputation. The branch further consisted of 4 areas, including the Subadult Group of Education, the Subadult Group of Creation, the Group of Motivation, and the Group of Recruitment. In order to provide some level of education to billions of unfortunate young beings across the galaxy in the aftermath of the Republic's demise, the Subadult Group of Education was a well-organised group that boosted COMPNOR's popularity. This branch firmly believed in the ideals of the New Order and were determined to ensure that there were well-educated galactic citizens in order to improve their contribution to the New Order. The Imperial Security Bureau took exception to the Subadult Group of Education's directives, which left them perplexed about the improvements they were implementing. The Subadult Group of Recreation was created to provide healthy activities for its youth members. One particular sport rose within the new order, called Wedge Sphere, was a harshly physical and competitive team game which became popular on thousands of worlds, and many of the Subadult Group, who were promising players, were recruited by either COMPNOR or entered into training at the Imperial academies scattered around the galaxy. The Wedge Sphere wargame was designed to introduce the Subadult Group to military training, but using stun safes to prevent lethal fire. The sport involved two teams of players playing in a six-sided low-gravity well, where they would attempt to place a ball into the opponent's goal. A team of male Wedge Sphere players were also known as Wedgemen. The youth members of the Subadult Group who were not upholding the beliefs of the new order were sent to a section known as Motivation. There, the youth's behaviour that did not live up to expectations was supposed to be driven out of them before being released with total compliance. Although it was reported as a huge success, in reality the success proved to be far less favourable. Responsible for recruiting new members into the organisation's ranks, recruitment over the first 5 years of the new order grew to 10 trillion members and was pressed by the Imperial Security Bureau to increase their activities. The next sub-agency of COMPNOR was the Coalition for Progress, which eventually acted as a huge central authority for gathering and monitoring information throughout the galaxy. They analysed low-level intelligence by reviewing millions of reports on the chance of uncovering any suspicious activity. Any worthy findings were delivered to the Imperial Security Bureau. The Coalition for Progress consisted of one sub-branch called Sector Monitor, which in turn managed 5 groups which provided reporting on cultural progress for social activities in each sector. The groups reporting were Art, Science, Commerce, Justice and Education. Members involved in reporting for the Sector Monitor were assigned throughout the sectors of the galaxy. The Group for Art reported on art forms within the sector that met the new order's inflexible criteria of stern principles. Members from the art group were particularly reviled by sophisticated species who had developed their cultural art over thousands of years. In the very early years of the Empire's reign, the Group for Science had held an independent branch of COMPNOR before being reorganised into the Coalition for Progress. The group's main function was to coordinate research and development with the aim of enhancing scientific progress and was monitored closely by the ISB. Many of its members were scientists who wished to perform basic science research and resisted attempts to be involved in any military projects. The Group for Commerce functioned by designing economic improvements on systems loyal to the Empire. They created a corporate sector system development program which aided worlds that had been abandoned after the fall of the Old Republic, empowering them to become economically self-sufficient. Unlike the Subadult Group of Education members, education personnel for this group did not teach galactic citizens. Instead, they produced reports on how sectors could restructure their education systems to reflect the ideology of the new order. Unfortunately, many bright but incompetent personnel were assigned to this group. In the wake of the Old Republic, many legal complications existed in which the Justice Group were charged to produce a uniform legal code. The legal system was improved greatly by its members' efforts and ideas to create a legal code to be applied and enforced in sectors across the Galactic Empire. The next sub-agency of COMPNOR was the Coalition for Improvements, which became its own agency as suggested by Emperor Palpatine, after originally being part of the Coalition for Progress. Coalition for Improvements received progress reports from the ISB containing systems around the Empire which deviated from the ideals of the new order. The Imperial Security Bureau assigned improvements to cases which required long-term solutions. Responsible for overseeing the development of the Empire's territories, the sub-branch of sector development possessed limited resources due to priority, despite the Emperor's favour. By strategically prioritising relatively inexpensive long-term development, the group allocated funds into improvements which provided the maximum benefit. Sector development contained 2 separate branches with specific mandates, the modification and the redesign branch. To galactic citizens, the branch of modification was an organised group of system specialists providing assistance to local planetary systems to modify their technology to Imperial standards. However, their primary objective was modifying social conditions and institutions on a planet to better conform to the Empire's ideology to improve the loyalty of the citizens. Members of Modification would purposely promote the achievements and careers of the individuals who were politically in line with the New Order. When agents of the Empire realised improvements were not possible upon a planetary system to implement the ideals of the New Order, the redesign branch would inform the Imperial military to decide the next course of action. However, if their decision was made that the planet was somewhat of value, redesign would build their activities upon the military's actions. These actions related to the changes of the planet's state for governing, which often meant rather unsavoury solutions. However, fortunately for many worlds who were deemed for redesign to tackle, the group lacked the resources to invoke their plans upon more than one planet at any one time. The fourth sub-agency, known as the military arm of COMPNOR, was called COMPFORCE. This military group were intended to provide the Emperor with fanatical loyal troops as well as the Stormtrooper Corps. COMPFORCE conscripted their recruits from the Subadult Group and carefully assessed their suitability into two categories: observation personnel and assault personnel. The Imperial military disliked this type of personnel because COMPFORCE were prioritised when allocating new equipment and resources. A distinct difference between the regular military and the COMPFORCE units were their fanatical commitment to the New Order's ideology and how they would best serve it. The regular military understood the basics of the New Order and simply viewed the Order as guiding principles. The branch of observation units were selected for their political loyalty and were tasked sometimes to observe the Imperial military in action in order to learn how the Imperial war machine functioned. In reality, they spied upon the officers and the enlisted crew of the Imperial military to observe if they were acting with the proper respect of the New Order. Knowing they were spies, regular military units knew better than to damage their careers by insulting an observation officer. The assault branch of COMPFORCE was known for its extremely high casualty rate. With an endless supply of Subadult Group volunteers sent through a brutal training regime to become combat ready, only 12% would ever complete their training. A quarter of volunteers who failed their training died during combat fatalities. With this harsh training and indoctrination, for assault troops it provided a strong unit cohesion as well as instilling a willingness to fight on despite heavy casualties. In some cases, despite the difficult circumstances, units lasted long enough to train themselves and pass on their skills to other volunteers. These veteran units gained a fearsome reputation, which was deserved. The fifth sub-agency of COMPNOR was the Imperial Security Bureau, which I will cover in the next video episode. Please subscribe to my channel for more Imperial Explained videos. Thank you for watching, long live the Empire, and as always, may the Force be with you.